This is Chapter 16, The Second Great Filter, Part 1, from a story called The Time Dilated Generations, by Esteban Gallardo. Humanity has always defied the impossible. When faced with extinction, when all paths seemed to lead to oblivion, they did what they had always done best: adapt, innovate, and survive. The gravitational cataclysm that had once threatened to extinguish life on Rigel 1 should have been the end. For an entire year, the planet's already fragile, habitable zone would be plunged into a deep freeze, turning any efforts at terraforming into nothing more than fleeting dreams. No crops would survive, no forest could take root, and no wildlife could endure the planet's merciless slumber. The very notion of colonization seemed doomed to failure. And yet, the settlers refused to surrender. Through decades of relentless research, they discovered a way forward. The answer lay not in resistance, but in adaptation. Scientists engineered an entire biome of flora capable of hibernation on demand. By synthesizing a biochemical compound that could be dispersed across the landscape, they created a mechanism to trigger a planetary-wide dormancy, allowing vegetation to withstand the deadly year-long winter. This breakthrough transformed the cataclysm from an extinction event to a mere seasonal cycle, one that could be prepared for, endured, and ultimately conquered. The event became known as the Year of Hibernation. Humanity adapted to its rhythm, much like Earth's civilization had once prepared for harsh winters or monsoon seasons. In the years leading up to hibernation, food stores were stockpiled, energy reserves were bolstered, and economic activity slowed to a crawl. The long, cold year became a time of reflection, a period of stillness amid the perpetual motion of survival. Religious institutions, which had gradually woven themselves into the fabric of society, embraced the cycle as a sacred test of endurance and self-examination. The faithful observed it as a time of atonement, a year-long confession where humanity was forced to reflect on its past and prepare for its future. By the time the settlers perfected their hibernation protocol, only Albert Wolff remained from the original landing crew. He had lived to witness humanity's triumph, but his heart carried the weight of loss. The mission had been a success, but time claimed its toll. Donna Cruz, once the fearless leader of the first planetary expedition, had passed away peacefully in her sleep just 2 years before the research was completed. She had lived to 76, a lifetime shaped by struggle, resilience, and love. She and Albert had married not long after their first victory over the cataclysm. Having faced death together, Donna no longer saw any reason to deny what she had always known. Albert had been her anchor, her unwavering constant. Together, they built a family, raising 2 children who became their legacy, their proof that humanity could thrive beyond Earth. They had sacrificed everything to ensure the survival of future generations, and as Albert gazed upon the thriving world they had helped shape, he knew they had no regrets. Once the settlers were assured that long-term habitation bore no fatal consequences, progress surged forward at a staggering pace. Within 60 years, the twilight zone of Rigel 1 was lined with vast hydroponic fields, each one a step toward building a breathable atmosphere. The advanced xylthane-based structures and the abundance of newly cultivated resources accelerated the growth of civilization. Cities rose where barren land had once stretched endlessly. The limits of human ambition had been lifted, and for the first time since leaving Earth, the settlers dreamed without restraint. By the time the first century had passed, the restrictions on birth rates were lifted. Colonization was no longer a struggle for survival. It was a race towards prosperity. Families were encouraged to grow, and in turn, so did the population. From an initial settlement of a few hundred, their numbers surged to 20,000 and continued to rise exponentially. The once crucial space station orbiting Rigel 1 gradually emptied, its population dwindling as more people took the one-way journey to the surface. Only a skeleton crew of 50 remained, maintaining the station as the silent guardian watching over the planet below. It would take 2 more centuries before humanity developed the colossal rocket systems needed to escape the planet's 1.3 times Earth gravity and re-establish a rotational crew between the surface and orbit. By then, the space station had evolved into an archive of knowledge, a testament to the journey that had begun centuries before. Another 2 centuries passed, marking the 300th anniversary of humanity's arrival. It was then that they achieved what had once seemed impossible, a fully breathable atmosphere. For the first time since leaving Earth, settlers walked beneath an open sky without the weight of the life support systems. The planet had transformed into a second home. Freedom brought rapid expansion. Over the next 2 centuries, settlements spread across every habitable stretch of the Twilight Zone, turning the thin belt of perpetual dusk into a vast and thriving civilization. The population exploded from 2 million to 600 million within mere generations. By the 500th anniversary, the settlers of Rigel 1 had accomplished their ultimate goal. They had rebuilt society, not just as it was, but as it was meant to be. A civilization where all dreams could come true. For the 10th time, Samuel Torres checked the results. His hands trembled as he reran the calculations, combed through the data, and cross-checked every variable. He had spent a month tirelessly searching for an error, a glitch, any rational explanation that could disprove what he had found. He wanted to be wrong. But the evidence was undeniable. For centuries, humanity had unknowingly been poisoning itself. The culprit? The very material that had made life on Rigel 1 possible, the so-called miracle substance, xelthane. The year was 560 AR, after Rigel arrival, and Samuel Torres had been leading a pioneering project, one that promised to reshape the future of human colonization. The twilight zone of Rigel 1 was nearly fully settled, and expansion into the extreme temperature regions, the scorching heat of the day side, and the sub-zero wastelands of the night side, had become the next great challenge. Samuel, an expert in nanobot medical restoration technology, had devised a revolutionary solution, a swarm of nanobots that could repair cellular damage from extreme heat and radiation. His research had caught the attention of the government, securing him a massive grant, and soon after, he had found another key backer, Shinra Corp., the undisputed giant of the planet's economy. Shinra's interest wasn't purely scientific. The corporation controlled the vast xelthane mines of Rigel 1, and orbital scans had detected untapped deposits in regions far too hot for human workers. If Samuel's project succeeded, Shinra Corp would gain access to resources beyond their current reach. For Samuel, however, the project had been about something bigger. It was about pushing the boundaries of human survival. He had been given a dream laboratory, cutting-edge technology, and a hand-picked team for the best minds on the planet. The funding seemed endless, and the possibilities were limitless, until his dream turned into a nightmare. Over the centuries, Shinra Corp had become more than a corporation. It had become a power unto itself. Xelthane had revolutionized life on Rigel 1. It was used in everything, from architecture to infrastructure to fuel-efficient nuclear reactors, life support systems, and even the packaging of basic goods. It was so deeply embedded into civilization that life without it seemed unthinkable. Despite its vast influence, Shinra had always presented itself as a force for good. It paid its taxes, funded education, healthcare, and public infrastructure, and even contributed generously to social welfare programs. And yet, beneath the surface, people whispered. For the last centuries, questions had lingered. Who truly ruled Rigel 1? The elected democratic government, or the corporate empire that controlled its most vital resource? Officially, the government remained independent, public institutions thrived, and society continued to advance. On the surface, everything seemed perfectly balanced. That was part 1 of Chapter 16, The Second Great Filter, from a story called The Time-Dilated Generations, by Esteban Gallardo. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next time.